Okay, number one, what would be the least likely to be the store of value during a period of rapid inflation? Cash. So basically, that's just what we just talked about. Okay, so during rapid inflation, your value of money will constantly be falling. So people will not prefer to keep cash, all right? So gold, property, and shares, all of these are not affected by inflation. So gold, basically, is just the value of the gold. It will always be there, okay? Property, it doesn't depend on the inflation, but sometimes when there's inflation, your property value might actually go up even further. Again, same thing, share prices. What happened to your share prices is that it will also not change based on your inflation, okay? Right, now go back up, is that the next thing we have to know is that what is your measurement for inflation and how do we usually measure inflation, right? So the first thing that they came out with is what they call a retail price index, okay? And they call this as RPI. So basically, whatever that we spend, whatever that we buy, it will all go into this RPI. Okay, and it will then just take an average price of what we have just bought. Okay. Okay, so at first they came up with RPI, but then they realized that RPI is not a correct measurement. So what happened with this RPI is that when you buy houses or when you buy car, which is 100,000, or when you buy houses which is more than millions, what happened is that it will add up a lot into your retail price index. And it's not a correct reflection because people don't buy house every year, people don't buy car every year. So they then came out with this thing called the RPI minus X. Okay, so RPI minus X, X basically stands for mortgages in this case. Okay, so to take out whatever mortgages that you have took to buy houses and just calculate whatever that we spent. But again, it's still not the one or the results that they think it is. So they came up with what we are all using nowadays, which is called the Consumer Price Index. So in short, this is called CPI. Yeah. So this CPI is basically calculating monthly or even on a quarterly basis. And this CPI is always maintained by the government statistic body because it's difficult for us to actually calculate it. Okay, so what is this CPI? This CPI, and how does it different with what we have just went through RPI and RPI minus X? Okay, so CPI, it's a reflection of what the people usually spend. So they have to go and look at what are the things that people usually spend, and they will assign a higher weightage on the prices for those items that we spend. So take an example, if more and more people are buying like new shoes nowadays, and then they will assign more weightage to shoes. If people are buying more on clothes, they will then spend more or assign most of the weightage of your calculation or your index towards shoes. Okay, I will explain the detailed calculation next week, but for now, let's just go through the definition of CPI. Okay, CPI, Consumer Price Indexes, is an index of price of goods and services typically purchased by urban consumers. And this is usually compiled as well as published monthly by the government. So in Malaysia, take an example, they actually publish this in a website, and they also do this CPI by states. So you have CPI for KL, you have CPI for Malacca, you have CPI for Penang, you have CPI for Johor, and so on and so on. Urban. All right. If you have done, we are done for this week.